Creature Comforts is probably the nicest game that I've ever played. And now the question is, well, is that a good thing? Okay, Creature Comforts is designed by Roberta Taylor, illustrated by Shauna J.C. Tenney, and published by Kids Table Board Gaming. Now, this is a 1 to 5 player game. It is competitive, and it's all about worker placement with some dice allocation. Here's what the game is about. You have a family of 4 little critters that you are sending out into Maple Valley in order to prepare for the upcoming winter. You'll be gathering resources from the valley, from the forest, the river, even exchanging things from the market, finding new ways to decorate your home at the Owl's Nest, build improvements for your home, and ultimately make friends with visitors coming by every month. The goal here is to make the coziest home and score the most victory points by the time winter rolls around. Here's how the game works. Immediately, the game starts off with something really cool, and that is with these family dice. So you start off with 2 specifically colored dice. You're gonna roll them and then leave them on your player board. That's gonna give you 1/3 of the information that you need in order to make a future decision about where to allocate your dice. The other 4 dice are going to be in a general pool, and these are going to be used by everyone at the table versus your family dice, which is used only by you. Now, after you roll the dice, you're gonna take your 4 workers and then everyone places them at the same exact time all around Maple Valley. And there are 12 spots, but for the most part, there are 6 distinct regions where you can place your critters. At the very top is your valley. Once you place a worker here and then meet the dice condition listed on the bottom, then you'll gain the ingredient listed at the very top. And this is also your game timer. So at the end of the round, these are going to flip over, going from spring ultimately to summer, and then we get to the last phase, which is going to be fall. And then once winter shows up here on the board, then the game is over. Now after that, we go to the river. River is another way you can gain resources as well. You have rocks here and a coin that you can gain. Placing a worker here at this river wheel, you have to meet this condition. So for this case, you have to have a 6. In this area, you can have a 1 or a 2. And in this area, you can have a 4, 5, or a 3, and then gain the respective resources listed in that. At the end of the round, this is going to rotate 1 turn, 1 notch, and then it's going to switch it up for every single round. Moving on, we have 1 more area we can gain resources. This is the market. The asterisk means you can use any resource in order to exchange for other resources or coins, shown here in this chart. And those 3 regions are going to be the main areas for you to generate resources. Now the question is, well, what am I gonna do with those, Tim? I'm gonna tell you right now. With the stuff that you just gained, the rocks, the wheat, the apples, the books, mushrooms, all that, you're gonna take those and fulfill conditions listed on your comfort card, which is at the very bottom. This is the Owl's Nest. Let me go ahead and push this board up a little bit so you can see. But this is the Owl's Nest. Here, if you place a worker, we'll go ahead and use the hedgehog this time. So you place a worker here and meet those dice conditions, then you also get to gain a card drawn randomly from this pile. So if I were to place a worker here and buy any of these cards, I'll go ahead and choose a board game. If I were to buy a board game, I can use the left slots here to expend any resource. Ultimately, that will score me 7 victory points. And at the bottom here, these comfort cards also have extra conditions for you to meet as well. This one says +1 for every other board game and toy comfort that you also have to put in your house as well. And in the final 2 regions, let's say you want to improve your home. These are permanent upgrades that you can build, also known as cottages. So on the left side of the board, you'll see a bunch of these square-shaped cards. These are improvements, and if you place a worker here, we'll go ahead and use a raccoon this time. If I place a raccoon here, I can use a die, again, to allocate along any of these spots, and then gain that respective improvement. So let's say I want to buy a recipe book, same exact idea here as the comfort cards. So I'll go ahead and pay the resource listed on the left-hand side, score those points, and then gain this permanent upgrade for my cottage. This is your player board. Once you score an improvement, you'll take off 1 cottage, and in turn, that'll score you a victory point shown here that's revealed when you build a cottage. This cottage is gonna go onto your improvement just like that. And in case you're wondering what the rest look like, it goes 1, 2, 4, and 1. Last up is this region. These are travelers that are visiting Maple Valley, and they'll give you either immediate effects like this gray wolf. Leave a wolf emoji down below for this totally accidental, non-purposeful choice as an example for a traveler to talk about in Creature Comforts. Okay, this one says immediately in turn order, each player may claim a face-up comfort from the owl's nest and then refill the owl's nest. So I get to get one of these cards and then it gets refilled. And then at the end of the round, this traveler is going to leave and then a new one pops up from here. In this case, it is the black bear. This one says a all month long effect. So unlike the wolf, which happens immediately as soon as he gets flipped up, for the black bear, this one's gonna happen throughout the turn. In summary, what you're doing on your turn for creature comforts is rolling your family dice, which is gonna give you a little glimpse in the future about where you can place your dice, because now you're gonna take all of your workers and then place them in any spot you want on the board. You yourself cannot double up on a space, but there can be multiple players on a space, so you're not really competing for spaces like you would in Everdell if you played Everdell. And then from there, one person is going to roll the group dice, and with these dice listed at the hilltop, you're gonna take your own player dice, combine it here. Now you have your pool set for the entire turn. So going with one player at a time, you're gonna take these dice and then allocate them along different spots on the board, depending on where you're placed. So if I'm playing here as yellow and it shows a 5 here, I don't have any 5s listed on the board. In order for me to help mitigate that dice, I can actually use one of these lesson learned tokens, which helps you modify the dice by +1 or -1. These you gain if, for instance, like I can't use this one at all, I'll gain this when I recall my worker back. Or there are other ways you can gain these from various effects, but this is one way to modify the dice. In this case, I can't use any dice at all to allocate here, which means when I return my worker back to home, I'm gonna take a lesson learned to use for the next time. Other than that, let's say I have 3 more rabbits listed here on the board. I would just take these dice and allocate them accordingly. So I can take this 6 here. This space doesn't need any dice. And this one, let's say I wanna buy a recipe book, which needs a 2. I'll take a 2 over here. From there, I resolve those regions effects. And then I take these dice back to my board. And this die goes back to the general pool. That is pretty much how the game works. Now, let's go ahead and dive into the review. Okay, I played Creature Comforts at the 2-player count, and we played 3 games in total now. And with those 3 plays, what I've really come to enjoy is I just really like that initial tease of information. I think it's fascinating how you start off with 2 and then you gain a shared pool of 4 dice later on. Plus, you also get these lesson learned tokens when you can't allocate dice properly. So I just think it's interesting how you're making these decisions based on a little bit of information, and you also get to mitigate your dice a little bit based on what you know and what you can gain later on. So if you're not a fan of luck, at least this game does have some ways to mitigate that a little bit. Now from there, the second thing I really enjoyed about this game is the overall flow. It's really nice how the cards are regenerating, refreshing with every single turn. It's really cool and thematic how there are different ingredients being introduced with every season. I love how there's a completely different set of choices at the top with every round. The river running in the middle is actually more of a significant factor than you may initially think, because rocks is actually like the baseline ingredient. You actually need rocks quite often in order to convert to other things. And it's really cool how you're changing the values with every round. On top of that, when you go to the comfort cards at the bottom, and the travelers and the ingredients, all of those are going to be knocked down and refreshed with every round. So I had a lot of fun changing up my decisions and changing different spots that I go to based on everything that gets refreshed with every single turn. What's also nice, and another big highlight for me as well, is how your workers are being placed simultaneously with every player. So no matter how many players you play with, everyone puts their workers out all at the same time, and you're not competing for different spaces. The downtime, however, the downside to this actually comes with the turn afterwards, when everyone has to take their time and allocate dice accordingly to all 4 of the workers. At 2 players, the downtime isn't too bad because you're just waiting for one person, but I can't even imagine playing this at 5 players and everyone's taking their turns allocating 4 dice, and it's going to be a super long game. So I think 2, 3, maybe 4 might be like the limit. I feel like 3 might even be the sweet spot for this game. What's also unfortunate about other people taking their turns is that I wouldn't mind waiting, but I'm not really invested in their turns because what they do doesn't really affect my own player choices, which in turn also limits the amount of player interaction that you have overall in this game. And it's something that I 100% miss. Like, I wish I was interacting with other players in some way. For instance, if we were competing for different resources to build better accents for our houses, if we have just more incentive to care about other players' turns, I think this game would have been a lot more fun. Like the dice rolls, I think the game mitigates that a little bit in that you have so many things to think about on your turn. You have to read through all of the improvements and all the comfort cards. You're thinking about which resources to prioritize during this specific season, where to use those resources, where to use your dice accordingly. With all those in mind, even if I did miss the play interaction, I still didn't need it as much. So it was a good solitary game. With all those in mind, it at least keeps you very, very occupied and entertained while waiting for everyone else to take their turn. And the last thing I wanted to mention about this game, probably my biggest gripe actually, is the repeat comfort cards. So I get it. I get why some cards are repeated because they're part of a set collection like the toboggan and the muffler. Having more copies of those cards gives you a higher chance of getting them as these cards are being generated from the comfort deck. But I think my biggest issue is with the cards that are repeated that aren't part of a set collection. Like for instance, there are 3 pantry cards and 3 fairy gardens and 3 piggy banks, all dealing with the same kind of bonus. I think it just would have been more interesting to add in more unique cards. Like all these cards ultimately give 1 out of 2 effects. Either you gain a bonus for a pair of cards, or you gain points for storing a resource on that card. I think Creature Comforts would feel a lot more rewarding if the cards were more diversified in your choices. Like for instance, having a desk to put into your home, and that desk will reward you for all of your creatures that don't have any dice allocated to them for that turn. So instead of incentivizing you to use all your workers and the dice associated with them, what about just having 1 card to mix it up, where if you don't match any dice at all, then you gain more and more of the lessons learned and like a different bonus from that desk. Or maybe a fireplace that rewards you for having all the fire themed cards in this deck. Just some kind of effects that are different from put more resources on this card in order to gain a bonus, or collect this other card in order to get this bonus together. Because ultimately those are the 2 main effects in this deck. And I think having a larger variety of cards would have made the gameplay a lot more interesting, rewarding, and definitely a lot more thematic too, especially when you're building a whole diversified home. With that said, I've listened to all of your feedback and I'm adding in a slight tweak in my review scale, as you'll see in a moment, and putting everything in general categories that I think will make a lot more sense than what I've been doing if you've seen my past reviews. So with that, I'm giving Creature Comforts a 3.8 out of 5, and here's why. I think the game length is a little bit too long and the comfort cards become too similar after a while, but it is a very easy game to pick up and play, and clearly the target here is probably new gamers or younger players to enjoy as a family game, which is why I gave replayability a 3. There is practically little to no play interaction. It doesn't really break the game for me, but I do miss it, especially as it starts off with everyone placing workers everywhere and starting that conversation. But that talk around the table does die off a little bit once everyone goes into their turns and allocate their own dice without affecting other players. The theme here is perfect. I love sending out creatures to collect different ingredients in the forest and having these seasonal changes. I love the river changing this wheel and different travelers visiting the inn that you're befriending and getting their benefits every month. It's just super cool, and the theme is just spot on. If you're looking for an entryway game, a game to enjoy with the family, especially with like Thanksgiving coming up, if you're looking for a game to play around like a campfire or maybe even like from a chimney in a cabin, if you're looking for a cozy themed game, this is going to be one heck of a good one for that. I love this dice element. I love this simultaneous worker placement. Yes, it's not the first time that that's been done, but I think Creature Comforts gives a really unique spin to that. The production value of this game is amazing. I love these custom cut creature meeples. I love the artwork. It's just so beautiful. And of course, all the custom resources as well. Overall, if you're looking for a fun, light, family-friendly game, especially a game to introduce to new gamers or younger gamers, this is going to be a perfect fit for that. So definitely check it out. And if you enjoyed today's review, don't forget to hit subscribe so we can keep on growing, Wolfpack. With that said, thank you all so much for joining me, and I will see you all in the next video. I'm looking at the resources, and I love these apple resources. This is probably like my favorite resource in the game. It just looks so freaking cool. And if you made it to the end, comment down below your favorite unconventional fruit, however you want to interpret that. For me, I would say, away from like apples and strawberries and blueberries, how about something exotic like mangosteen? If you ever get a chance to try mangosteen, you need to try it out. It's delicious. Okay, see you later.